All right, glad to have you back. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is concerned and worried about the continued decision of the central bank to maintain monetary policy at 27.5% since November 2024, despite a global wave of interest rate reductions aimed at revitalizing economic productivity and combating stagflation. The association's Director General, Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir, noted that over the last quarter, countries such as United Kingdom, Denmark, Australia, China, India, Thailand, and Egypt have implemented interest rate cuts to bolster economic growth and support productive sectors. He added that Nigeria has become the sixth most expensive country to source credit as local manufacturers grapple with an average lending of over 37%. Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir is my guest for this conversation. Good afternoon. He is the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. He joins me from Ogun State. Thank you so much. DG, first, thank you for joining. Thanks for your patience. Take us through the position of manufacturers on the outcome of the MPC and, of course, the rebased GDP.
Okay. Tolu, thank you for having me. You have correctly reflected the positions that we put out. And to start with the MPC, it is a good thing to see that the rates have not actually been increased. I mean, because we were continuously increasing the rates in the past, and we saw how debilitating the impact has been on the manufacturing sector. So, but having retained it for a while now, I think we are strongly of the opinion that we have to see a winding down of the rates. And this is because, like you rightly pointed out, all around the world, rates are being brought down, or there's a clamor for bringing down the rates in order to incentivize productivity. In Nigeria, where we operate in a very high-cost environment, it can only mean that except you reduce, you bring down the pressure on interest rate, we are not likely to have enough funding for the manufacturing sector. According to UNIDO, our funding needs is way above 5 trillion in a year. And you would imagine how less than 15% of the lending to the private sector actually comes to this very important sector of the economy. If you borrow at 35, 37%, it is clearly impossible for you to invest, make profit, and be able to claw back the profit that you make, which will mean that you may not be able to expand. There will be no new investment. You won't be able to employ. You won't even pay enough taxes to government. So for us, retaining the rate, though a welcome development in the sense that it was not increased, but we need to go way, way below what the rates are so that the money deposit banks will be able to take a cue. And this is more so that funding windows like the development banks, BOI, they are undercapitalized, and so with others. So there are no windows for us to be able to effectively borrow. And other alternatives are not mature enough to be able to bring succor to the sector. So we are really of the opinion that enough has to be done by the CBN to look at the impact of the retention on the productive sector and see that it's not helping it because it's shrinking. From the figures from the NBS, you could see that manufacturing growth is minus 0.76%, which means that the sector is actually shrinking. And a lot has to be done, chief among which is access to affordable credit, the one that you'll be able to borrow, produce, scale, and be competitive, and be able to export. Because what is needed is for your product to be competitive in countries where you have market access. So, I mean, that is that about the MPC. You also asked the issue about rebasing of the GDP. So I think that we have put it out there that it is a welcome development. I mean, it reflects the fact that we have become more sophisticated in our data gathering. It also will boost investors' confidence that the economy is getting much larger. And we are beginning to accommodate sectors that we didn't take into consideration before, which means that before now, we were underreporting the performance of the economy. And it is actually a good thing to see that there is a lot of growth in the service sector, in the digital economy, transport, and so on and so forth. So I believe it's a welcome development. And the figures that we have is likely to guide government action to the extent that it will allow us to see where there are gaps. And where gaps exist is actually the one that worries me. I mean, and it's the growth in the manufacturing sector, which I already mentioned. The sector is not growing. And there are specific measures that needs to be taken so that we'll see that the reported growth in the economy or enlargement of the economy has an inclusive growth content so that, like you said in the previous interview, so we're able to see it trickle down to the micro. It is important that government sustains its current efforts and accelerates the reform in those sectors that they have chosen that are drivers of productivity and growth. And I believe that the figures should actually be a clarion call on government to see that, look, this economy, and I believe the government knows, this economy has huge opportunities for growth, and that these reforms that they have embarked upon should be sustained, and there should be an intentional effort to grow the industrial sector of the economy. If you look at the growth pattern that was reported by NBS between the 2010 and 2019, which is the base year, the industrial sector actually shrunk from, I think, about 27 point something percent to 21.08%. But there is prospect for growth, and that's what I think we should do. I believe this is what informed the coming up of the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Industry, concerning the Industrial Revolution Work Group, which has encapsulated the challenges, the issues that we have militating against the manufacturing sector, and bringing an interministerial platform for us to be able to engage, including the private sector, to see how we can intentionally delete, so to say, those challenges to growth. I mean, if we are going to get to a $1 trillion economy in the next 5 years, it means that we must prioritize, the productive sector so that we can have an inclusive growth and a smooth movement to achieving these very ambitious but attainable objectives. I mean, we have to grow between 6 to 7% every year for us to be able to get there, and we are currently doing 3.3. It's possible, no doubt about that. But a lot of measures has to be taken. We need to work on our infrastructure, which we need to strengthen. We need to look at the regulatory environment that must be supportive of growth patterns and not constituting a bottleneck. We must hurry up with the implementation of some of those reforms we have done in this area so that we'll be able to grow as fast as is possible. You cannot run a 100 meters dash with your legs tied together. So I believe that government should stay focused. I mean, they should accelerate the growth levers, and we should ensure that we have an inclusive solution to the path that we have chosen for ourselves.
It looks like a very big one for manufacturers at this time, borrowing at above 35, 37%. And some are saying manufacturers could explore other alternatives or other financing models. Part of your discussion there at the AGM, what is that the way to go, and what are those options?
Well, so I think that, yes, it's part of the way to go. We know the barriers to lending, apart from the fact that the rates are high. And I mean, if government is borrowing at 20% and above, you must imagine that it will be a tough one to bring it below that, wherever platform you are going to use. So I think the special windows that government itself has also enabled is very important. For instance, the 75 billion Naira facility that was given by the federal government and disbursed by the BOI exemplifies the excellent work that can be achieved if you stay the course, if you continue to expand that kind of portfolio. We have worked with the Bank of Industry these funds have been disbursed, and we are following up, monitoring the industries. They are bona fide manufacturers that are in far-flung places across the 6 geopolitical zones. And we can see that they are being deployed to scale, to be able to fund expansion and be able to bring down the pressure that people are having to deal with in terms of repaying their loans. So if, for instance, this is seen as a clear example of how successful we can be when we have such assets, then the 1 trillion naira that we are hoping we'll be able to have from the stabilization plan for the manufacturing sector is due. You can imagine how many industries will be able to access it and be able to overcome such challenges. Some of our industries that are located in the Northeast, where we have had about 60% of them shut down, those areas are being gradually liberated, and there's need for people to go back to their industries. So they will need funds to be able to plow back the damages that have been done. I mean, they will need to fund those ones. And you cannot borrow at above 35% to be able to do all of those. There is the AFCFTA that has opened up and is opening up the African market. We need to be able to compete. We need to be competitive. We need to be able to lower our costs, including costs of borrowing, for us to be able to export and be competitive. Because it's not just taking your goods across the border. It means that when your goods sit side by side with those from other climes on the shelf, you'll be able to sell, not only in quality, but also in terms of your pricing. So I believe that the way to go is to actually capitalize, for instance, BOI and other development banks for them to be able to support the productive sector. We must be intentional about directing credit towards that area.
Now, this is also what is responsible as export is kind of reducing at this time. Is it a high interest rate, or what do you think government can do to improve exports at this time? Because manufacturers they're not producing as much as they would do. How would they export, and how would they be competitive? That's on one side. On the other side, the next meeting is in September. If inflation continues to dwindle, but month on month went up. That's the scary part of it. If we see a reduction in month on month, do you think that we could see a possible reduction moving on for the meetings in September, ahead of that meeting?
Well, I'm optimistic. I see it, I pray it, I believe it, and I believe it will happen. I believe the CBN is also interested in growing the economy, because we are going to be able to create more jobs. We are going to pay. Look, when President Tinubu came into office and made those bold reforms that obviously caused a lot of hardship and the rest, people were thinking that it was going to continue, but now we are seeing some moderation. So I think we should capitalize on the momentum and really bring down the tension and the cost of living and improve productivity. So this is the best time for government to ride on this relative stability that we have and way accelerate the recovery. And I mean, I'm not a politician, but I know election is also coming. So I believe it's important for us to intentionally bring succor to the productive sector. I mean, Tolu, if government would intentionally promote manufacturing, we are going to see a lot of relief in the country. We are going to grow more jobs. We have so many industries that are shut down and that can still come alive. We have seen industries, and Nigerians, we are very resilient people that want to scale. We want to literally invade the African market. So it is critically important for us to drive towards that path. And I believe that government has already set the pace. I mean, like I mentioned before, under the Industrial Evolution Working Group, we've had unprecedented assemblage of interministerial functions, including the private sector, where we can deal with this issue, regulatory issues, access to credit, infrastructure, export constraints. I mean, you mentioned export. Apart from the cost of funds, export itself is a problem. It's difficult for you to export. There are so many regulatory bottlenecks. It's going to impact your capacity to export. So we need to be able to harvest all of those and intentionally remove them so that we will have an economy that works, the one that is intentional about promoting production. And I believe that we have all that it takes. We are on the same page with government on delivering on all of those. We just need to apply speed.
Director General Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, I must thank you as always for your time, despite your tight schedule, always trying to squeeze out time for us to have these conversations. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, and Toludo, have a great weekend.
All right there, Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir there, Director General Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Well, let's wrap the day up.